Hello everybody, I'm Valeria Lopez, and today I'm going to talk to you about the neuroscience of love, a prescription for pain relief. Have you ever noticed how holding someone's hand can make pain feel less painful? Maybe it was in a hospital room, during a breakup, or in a moment of fear, and somehow the simple presence of someone you love made the pain a little easier to handle. That's not just comfort, that's biology. In my case, I've needed stitches twice without anesthesia. Both times, my mom was there holding my hand. On the picture to the right, that was me after a breakup, crying to both my parents. After the call, I felt 10 times better. Today, I want to explore something both deeply human and scientifically fascinating. How love, one of the most powerful emotions, can actually act as a painkiller. Today, I want to explore more on this idea. First, we'll look at how we perceive pain. Then, how love influences pain. And thirdly, we'll look at the neural mechanisms that allow for this to happen. Before we get started, let's do a little background of pain. Pain is both a sensory and an emotional experience. It starts with the nociceptors, specialized nerve endings in our skin that detect harmful stimuli. When activated, these receptors send electrical signals through the spinothalamic tract, one of the main pathways for processing sensations like temperature and pain, straight to the brain. Once the signals arrive, areas like the somatosensory cortex help us pinpoint where the pain is and how intense it feels. But that's only half the story, because this is where things get really interesting. Pain isn't just about what is happening in your body. It's about how your brain interprets those signals. And this interpretation is deeply shaped by things like your attention, expectation, and emotion. In this case, love. Studies have shown that when people look at photos of a loved one during painful experiences, like holding a hot object or receiving mild electrical shock, their reported pain actually decreases. Brain scans show less activity in pain-related areas and more in regions linked to safety, comfort, and reward. It's as if love doesn't just distract us from the pain, it rewires how we feel it. As we get into the actual proof that love can act as a natural painkiller, I'm going to start you off with an experiment that shows how images of a loved one can trigger the same pain relief as the actual person. This is going to be extremely important since most of the experiments we'll discuss use images as a stand-in for the real connection, since having a loved one in the lab gets really complicated. To prove this idea, Sarah Masters and colleagues recruited several women in long-term relationships. What they did is applied a heat stimulus while submitting them to 7 different conditions. We had the holding a partner's hand, holding a stranger's hand, or holding an object. These conditions, they were not looking at the person, they had a curtain covering. And then 3 conditions viewing an image of a partner, an image of a stranger, or the image of an object, and the 7th condition that would be our control. It was just focusing on a crosshair. After each condition, they asked them to rate their pain. What we can see in the chart, if you focus on the dark bars, is that when viewing a partner's picture or when holding their hand, pain ratings significantly dropped. But what is actually impressive is that when viewing a partner's picture, pain decreased 2 times more than when holding their hand. The main idea we can take from this experiment is that love doesn't need to be physically present to have an effect. The simple mental representation of a loved one can be enough to trigger the brain's pain relief systems. So can anyone elicit pain relief in a person? Or is there something deeper behind it? Bear with me because this experiment is a little tricky to explain. Hillmer and colleagues recruited 29 women to undergo 15 trials of tonic heat pain while simultaneously viewing pictures from one of these categories. The categories were a romantic partner, an angry stranger, a happy stranger, a neutral stranger, or an object. Each trial consisted of a heat stimulation and then 3 pain ratings, 1 before pictures were showed and then 2 other after each block of pictures. Each block of pictures contained 3 pictures from the same category. So let's say this trial, we use the happy stranger category. So in the end, we're showing 6 pictures of happy strangers. During these trials, researchers also recorded psychophysiological data. Participants were attached to a device measuring skin conductance level, a marker for arousal, corrugator electromyography, which tracks frowning, more activity means a more negative emotional expression, and heart rate. So what did the results show? As you can see in the graph, only 2 categories had pain-relieving effects in self-assessments: partner images and happy strangers. The most significant effect came from viewing images of romantic partners, and physiological measurements supported this. Partner images trigger the highest skin conductance levels, indicating heightened emotional arousal. Then corrugator electromyography activity was lowest when viewing partner images in happy faces, meaning they reduced negative emotional expression the most. And lastly, heart rate measurements were a bit inconsistent, but if you look closely at the solid gray line, you can see heart rate decreases the most when participants view partner faces, suggesting a more relaxed state. In short, partnered faces consistently elicited the strongest, most positive emotional responses. This suggests that emotional connection, not just pleasantness, matters when it comes to modulating pain perception and physiological responses during pain exposure. But why is this happening? Why can stronger emotions for someone, like love, trigger pain relief? What is actually going on in the brain? So Aaron Younger and colleagues asked this question, but went a little deeper, and they asked, does viewing a romantic partner during pain activate brain areas involved in reward? So what they did is that during an fMRI scan, they showed participants a picture of either a romantic partner or an acquaintance, or they asked them to perform a distraction task, all while experiencing moderate to high heat pain. And what were the findings? Well, both viewing a romantic partner and doing their distraction task reduced pain significantly. But, and this is key, they reduced pain through completely different neural mechanisms. When the participants looked at their romantic partner, the brain showed increased activity in reward and emotion centers, like the amygdala, which processes emotional significance, and the medial orbital frontal cortex, which is involved in reward and pleasure. You can see this in the fMRI labeled A. The orbital cortex is circled in red. At the same time, there was decreased activity in pain processing regions like the left dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, or in short, left DACC, which plays a role in the emotional experiences of pain and distress. In contrast, the distraction task activated attention and cognitive control area, totally different to the brain's reward system. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means that love and distraction both work as natural painkillers, but they operate through completely different systems in the brain. One pulls on your emotions, while the other pulls on your attention. Amazingly, both can change your experience of pain. But there's an important significance in that love activates the reward mechanism, and by this pathway is that viewing a person during a painful situation, love manages to reduce its pain. So I know I've thrown a lot of information your way. So let's end up with, what does it all mean? Love, something we often think as purely emotional, is also biologically powerful. Whether it's a photo, a hand to hold, or even just a comforting memory, love activates the brain's reward system and can literally dampen the experience of pain. In the end, love isn't just a feeling. It's a profoundly adaptive neurobiological tool, one that reshapes how we experience even our most primal sensations, like pain. So, what if the next breakthrough in pain management isn't found in a pill bottle, but in something far more human? What if it's love? We've seen that love doesn't just comfort us, it actually changes how our brain processes pain. By understanding this, we're not just learning how to heal more effectively, we're rediscovering the power of emotional support. Because sometimes the most powerful painkiller is simply someone who cares. So that is it on the neuroscience of love. I really hope you enjoyed this because it took me way too long to record. Bye!